Merry flipping Christmas, everybody. Look, I really tried to be all festive and get into holiday spirit, but that's kind of hard to do when you literally live in hell. You can't go outside and see the snow covering the ground. There really isn't any Christmas yard decorations. Look, I've even set up a Christmas tree, but it's all fucking shriveled and burnt now because it's just too damn hot down here. I don't even know why I started recording. I don't have anything to play. The Doomtober Marathon is easy to do because there's a bunch of games perfect for the Halloween season, but what kind of games are there for the holidays? Fucking elf bowling? Sammy, did you get me a gift? Oh, you shouldn't have. Especially since I wanted to sell you after the Lucius review. Let's see here. Are you fucking serious? Super Noah's Ark 3D. Actually, it's Super 3D Noah's Ark, but it's kind of hard to read it given how the logo is laid out. And I mean, honestly, it just makes so much more sense to throw something like 3D at the very end of a title rather than awkwardly squeezing it right in the middle. Also, this cover is really all you need to tell you that this is going to be a weird-ass game. And believe me when I say that it doesn't just end here. Super 3D Noah's Ark has quite a reputation for having probably one of the most bizarre backstories of any game. Seriously, strap in because I think it'd be rather sacrilegious of me to do a review of this and not talk about just how ridiculous its development was. Take yourself back to 1988. A company known as Color Dreams, founded by Dan Lawton, wasn't really anything more than a standard studio making crappy shovelware type games for the NES. But there was a little something to them that made them a little special. You see, Color Dreams and Lawton did whatever they could to completely bypass Nintendo's licensing policies. Which back then, if you were making a game and planned on having it be playable on Nintendo hardware, it absolutely needed to be licensed by the company, otherwise they could outright just stop it from being sold on store shelves. On top of that, getting licensed by them meant that your game wasn't violent, it had to essentially be kid-friendly, and couldn't have any sort of religious themes. There was also the catch of Nintendo taking a good cut from however much your game sold. So it's a little obvious why Color Dreams had to work around these policies, and why they weren't ever buddy-buddy with Nintendo. But what's a little interesting is that while you might think Nintendo never licensed them because of the whole religious thing, the company never actually started off being very Christian. In fact, they were very much the opposite. Believe it or not, Super 3D Noah's Ark originally started off as a Hellraiser game that ran off the Wolfenstein 3D engine, but it became a lost cause mainly due to it becoming a little too ambitious for its own good. The game required its own special cartridge that would increase the NES's RAM and processing speed, which would have made it incredibly expensive for consumers. Eventually, development swapped over to the PC, but once a playable prototype was up and running, Doom came out, which discouraged Color Dreams from continuing work on the Hellraiser game as they felt that it just couldn't compete against it. It was also around this time that Color Dreams branched off and started Wisdom Tree, a studio that exclusively started making Christian games, not necessarily because they were very religious themselves. No, apparently they did it simply because they noticed there wasn't a whole lot of Christian games for Nintendo hardware on the market, and making biblical edutainment games would allow them to sell their products in bookstores, a place that Nintendo didn't have a very good grip on. To quote Daniel Lawton in an interview with NESworld, the Christian market was attractive because they didn't have any Nintendo games at all, and didn't give a fig about Japanese distribution. In fact, if you told them that Nintendo might be angry about them selling our games, that made them want to sell them even more. Christian bookstores number about 9,000 at any given time, and they all wanted to have our games. That's even more stores than Toys R Us. Now you might be wondering to yourself, can't Nintendo just sue these guys? And well, they actually kinda couldn't. There is no definitive answer that explains why, but apparently it could have been because they didn't want to receive any backlash from Christians, or because of the fact that Wisdom Tree wasn't really doing anything illegal. However, they did have a good trick up their sleeve. When it came time to make the SNES, they actually programmed it to only play officially licensed games. Surely this tactic would have been enough to put Wisdom Tree out of business, but alas, they completely tore the SNES a new one with the sheer power that is Super 3D Noah's Ark. What was once the aforementioned Hellraiser game became a very, very simplified Wolfenstein clone with a nice Christian coat of paint. And how did Wisdom Tree get past the SNES's anti-unlicensed games technology? Well, the game came with its own unique cartridge that was very similar to a Game Genie, where it had an open slot at the top. Through this slot, you could just plop in any licensed SNES game, and through some sort of magic, Super 3D Noah's Ark would boot up in all of its glory. Okay. History lesson is finally fucking over. Now it's time to actually get into the meat and potatoes. I should also probably state the obvious. I'm going to be covering the 2015 re-release, or the version that's available on Steam. I don't own an SNES, and even if I did, unless if we're talking about the reprints, some of these cartridges cost an arm and a fucking leg, Jesus. And I guess I could play the old MS-DOS version, but that's just a lot of work. $8 for a version that's got a load of technical improvements and just general quality of life stuff, it's a deal that's too good to miss. You'll be out of the Ark in 6 days, Noah. Unfortunately, the animals are a tad bit restless and want to get out now. Good thing you brought all that food with you. You'll need it to put the busy ones to sleep. At the end of the first day, be prepared to deal with Carl the camel. He's been real cranky lately and is a bit out of control. Good luck and be careful. Thanks, Jeebus. Okay, this is literally just frame 1, and I already feel like there's just so much to unpack here. For starters, since this is a Christian game, you're not going to be killing anything. Instead of guns, you're equipped with a slingshot that shoots food that you pick up as ammo, which you then use to forcefully feed and basically tranquilize the animals that run amok on the Ark. Apart from that, the only other starter weapon you get is, pocket sand. If you ever find yourself having to resort to this, honestly you're just kinda fucked, as it is easily not only the worst but also the most useless melee option in any game that I've ever played. While we're on the topic of things that are useless, if you haven't noticed it already, there's lives here. Seriously, I can't even remember the last time I saw one of these, especially in an FPS. But if you've played Wolfenstein 3D before, this shouldn't come as much of a surprise since Super 3D Noah's Ark runs off the same engine, and this whole life system pretty much functions the exact same way to that, or pretty much any game that has one of these. Only real difference here is that you've got fruit to collect, and collecting 50 of them will grant you a 1-up. This actually really confused me at first because not only is the whole concept of having lives pretty foreign in an FPS, but having these collectibles that are pretty much like the coins from a Super Mario game is very strange too. At first I thought the fruit was some kind of special ammo that I can switch to for doing extra damage, if you want to call it that. But no, it wasn't until I discovered one of the many ridiculously secret rooms this game has that are filled with fruits where I realized that getting enough of these gives you an extra life. And when I say the secrets are ridiculous, I do really mean it. Most of the time, these are very cleverly hidden where it takes a bit of thinking outside of the box in order to get to them, but here, you literally have to throw yourself against the wall, press space, and just hope that a secret gets uncovered. That's it. There's not even really a slight hint to tell you anything. Like, about the only advice I could give to you is that if the wall texture just randomly changes to something else for one spot, then there's maybe like a 50% chance it's going to be a secret. I know Wolfenstein 3D had the exact same thing, but I shit you not, that could be said for almost every part of this game. Super 3D Noah's Ark is almost a full carbon copy of Wolfenstein with just a different coat of paint and some very minor tweaks and additions. I could totally just end it here, but since this is the first Christmas special I'm doing on the channel, it wouldn't be very fun, and it wouldn't really be much of a review if I just cut it off here. I'm also going to acknowledge the fact that not everyone has played Wolfenstein 3D, and is familiar with the issues that game has. Look, I know it's a classic, but it's not perfect. Besides, I'm actually having a little bit of fun with this right now. And don't get me wrong, unless if you've never touched a video game before, this absolutely will not blow your fucking balls off, but I'm really appreciating the simplicity of it. Sure, its way of going about being non-violent is a little odd, to say the least, but I'll be honest, it's kinda cute and innocent. It's nice to take a break from poking the business end of a double-barreled shotgun in the face of some kind of demon or a Nazi. Then that almost always has to be accompanied with a really chuggy metal soundtrack. Sometimes you just gotta enjoy putting some small farm animals to sleep. And that soundtrack is fucking fire, let me tell ya. It's just so dumb and upbeat. Even when it's trying to be serious or intense, I just can't take it seriously. Especially with how bouncy that bass sounds. Also, I can't be the only one that hears a part of Wynona's Big Brown Beaver by Primus when listening to this song. The first chapter is very generous when it comes to giving you pretty much just about anything. It's incredibly hard to run out of ammo since all the animals will drop some most of the time when they're downed, and there's really no shortage of health pickups either, which is very much appreciated. Not that other FPSs have a problem with that, but one of my biggest gripes with this game so far is how terrible the enemy placement is. More often than not, there will always be an animal just hiding right behind a doorway to a room you're about to walk into, and as soon as you step in, you're either going to instantly get roundhouse kicked by a goat or spat on by a sheep. I know that Noah was like a gazillion years old at this point, but I don't think it was necessary to translate just how much of a fragile old fart he is in game. If one of these fuckers hit you, your health will drop from 100 to 50 in mere seconds, and at that point it only takes a small gust of wind to make Noah perish. It's especially bad with the animals that have ranged attacks, which is sheep, ostriches, gazelles, and oxen, or pretty much anything that isn't the goat. Everything here is hit scan too, meaning that so long as you're directly looking at it or it's directly looking at you, the attack will connect, which isn't bad. Most games still use hit scan as it is much less resource intensive and simpler than having to make a traveling projectile with its own physics and such, but usually they have some sort of way to make it so it doesn't feel unfair, whether it's dumbing down the AI's accuracy or giving the player more movement options. But you don't have any of that here. These animals are like sentries. The moment you get near them, they will just snap to you, and about the only thing you can do is just strafe out of their line of sight and hope they don't hit you, which is so much easier said than done. But yet again, at the very least, there are a good handful of health pickups scattered about every level. It also probably wouldn't take you very long to find one of these scrolls. Picking them up actually prompts you with a Bible trivia question, mostly having to do with the story of Noah. Answering it correctly replenishes a decent amount of your health and ammo. It's easy to entirely discredit school and say, oh, well when am I ever going to use half the shit I learned in chemistry or math? But as an ex-Sunday school student, never in my life would I have ever thought that I needed to retain anything I learned from there until I played Super 3D Noah's Ark. Holy shit, when there's no other pickups on the map and this is what you have to rely on for health or ammo, there's nothing else out there that will make you feel so ashamed of yourself than hearing that 8-bit compressed brat sing incorrect boldly appear right in front of your face, and then having to walk away with like 20 health, all because you didn't know how many doors the Ark had. Which is one, by the way. What a load of bullshit. There's more fucking doors here than there are animal cages. Actually, I'd go as far as to say there's probably more doors than there are animals on this boat. And I mean, speaking of which, wasn't there a whole 2 of each kind of animal thing going on? Why are the only animals that I'm seeing bovids or ostriches of all things? And it definitely seems like there's a lot more than 2 of each. And forgive me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I've touched up on the Bible, but I don't remember ever hearing anything about a Carl the Camel character, or Melvin the Monkey, or motherfucker Bert the goddamn bear. As you can see, Wisdom Tree took a lot of artistic liberties with the source material, but as if that wasn't enough, wait until you see just how insane these other slingshots look. You start off with the pretty tame full auto slingshot. Call me crazy, but Noah, I wouldn't be flashing that thing around, it really almost looks like a pentagram. Then you've got my personal favorite, the fuller auto slingshot. I can't even begin to make any sense of it, it just looks like something out of a Dr. Seuss book. At this point, we're not even talking about a slingshot. This is just a portable catapult that launches what seem to be cantaloupes. Then you've got another one that launches whole-ass watermelons. They really want you to get the idea of just how big and heavy these things are by making them roar every time you shoot one. Yeah, Noah, I don't think those animals are sleeping because they're well fed. In fact, I think they might actually be in a coma because you're giving them permanent brain damage. Chapter 1 is insanely short, only consisting of 2 levels and the last one being a fight against the notorious Carl the Camel. First boss of the day, should be an easy walk in the park. What the actual fuck just happened? Yeah, alright, you wanna really know just how weak you are? You stand in front of this bastard for a second too long and you disintegrate. It doesn't help that he locks onto you like a fucking missile. Oh my god, and you wanna know just how bad it is to lose a life in this game? No, you don't just go back to the start of the level. All of your weapons gone, as if you were never even carrying them in the first place. All you get is a handful of pocket sand and the regular slingshot. Oh, and your ammo? Cutting in half? Nah, that's a little too much. How does 8 fucking morsels sound? How am I supposed to do this? I can't even fight the boss anymore. And what the hell's the point of having lives if the game is going to punish you this much just for dying? Like, holy shit, just give me a game over screen at this point. And you know what's funny? You could ignore this system entirely by just quick saving. I don't even feel guilty about doing this really just seems like a huge oversight. Okay, back to Carl. Honestly, I don't really have any tips for this fight. Really just try and stay behind cover while holding down on the fuller auto slingshot. And if you happen to run low on food or ammo, there's supplies in the rooms on both the left and right side of the arena. Wow, Noah, Carl sure was hard to calm down. Yeah, he really was. But remember, you were chosen to guide this Ark to safety because you know how to get the job done. Well, I'm trying my best. After this, the game does become a little more difficult, which is to be expected, but it really goes about doing this in all the wrong ways. Somehow, after the first chapter, the enemy placements become so much worse. There's way too many levels that start off with enemies right at spawn. And it's especially bad with gazelles, which not only did they move the fastest, but they also attack faster too. And yet again, enemies that are hidden right behind doorways or corners become much more common, making it all the more frustrating when you die and you were never even given a chance to react to what just happened, then being thrown to either the very start of the level or just wherever you quick saved. Yeah, gee, thanks game. I really enjoy being greeted by an entire herd of animals the moment I step into a room. Oh, come the fuck on. Are you really going to throw a table right in front of the exit that I can't even do anything with? Yeah, and you're making me walk around it through a secret path. Okay, you know what? It's whatever. I guess it's like a cute little prank. Alright, well now you could really just go fuck yourself. Not only are you blocking the exit again, but you're going to throw in 3 ostriches that will demolish you before you could even comprehend what's going on. This isn't even funny, it's just sadistic. Who would even expect something like this to happen right at the end of the level? God forbid you end up in the same situation as me where you've got nothing for health and the game throws this shit at you. Hopefully you quick save because it's back to the very start of the level for you, sucker! Oh hallelujah, a maze level complete with narrow corridors and a wall texture that just keeps repeating itself. This is actually making me feel nauseous. I know the purpose of a maze is to make you lost, but there's just something about these wall textures that just fucks up my depth perception, making it so difficult to navigate through this shit. And pair that with how claustrophobic these corridors are. I may have eyes that work, but I'm hugging the walls and bumping into shit like a blind man trying to get a sense of the environment around me. It's even made worse by the fact that every wrong turn you make, you're going to instantly be greeted with one of the 5 animals. I get it for the challenge, but when it's every goddamn turn, it becomes less of that and more of an annoyance. I just want to finish this level for fuck's sake. Captain's log, day 323. I actually don't know how long I've been trapped down here. I just wrote down a random number, but it's definitely been way too long. Voices that aren't my own are starting to creep into my head. Who's the bozo that decided to build a fucking boat like this? Please, don't hurt me. Here, have some pocket lint. Have all of it. I don't need it. I don't need nothing. It just doesn't end. God, Jerry, Santa Claus, anyone who's up there listening. What did I ever do to deserve this? Oh, Super 3D Noah's Ark, or Super Noah's Ark 3D, depending on how you read the art, is surprisingly fun, but it's mostly kinda dumb. For starters, it takes so much from Wolfenstein, it should be considered a crime, or those levels that'll have you feeling lost, and lest we forget about the animals that have no problem getting you tossed, from big and small to tiny or tall, but the only thing keeping me from ending it all are those sweet funky tunes. So for the price of roughly 177 doubloons, this could be worth a buy, whether it's for yourself or for a peer. But just keep in mind, I'm putting this shit in D tier. I know this came out a little late, but I hope all of you beautiful father muckers had a happy Christmas and will have a merry new year. See ya!